Welcome to this episode where we talk to somebody who worked at Escape from Gringotts at Universal Studios Orlando. So Alohomora and Darganelli. Let's go, 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 go. All right, and now we're here with Dan. Dan, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Let's hop right into it. Tell us a little bit about where you worked and I guess around what time. Yeah, tell us a little bit about your job.
Sure. I started working at Gringotts, I believe it was the end of 2016. I had come down to Florida to do the Disney College program, and I was attempting to transfer to be a part-time employee there, but there was a bit of a delay, and I didn't want to leave Florida. Somebody suggested, hey, go check out Universal. They're always looking for people. So I went in, set up an interview, went through some fairly basic stuff, and then they asked me, so where would you like to work? And I think for some reason I said Transformers, and I believe it was because I liked the way that the costumes looked, the kind of military thing. And they were like, well, we don't have any openings there. And I was like, well, where do you have openings? And one of the places they said was Wizarding World of Harry Potter. And I said, well, I love Harry Potter. I've read the books and I've seen the movies and I would be interested. So they did a little quizzing, but I mean, I did well. I got all the questions right except for one. So I started there.
Yeah, I know that was a fairly common story when Shanghai Disney was being built and I guess labor was down. But it's very convenient that there was another big theme park right around the corner. So that's really cool. But let's talk a little bit about Escape from Gringotts, the ride. Tell me a little bit about it. Like, it is a thrilling roller coaster, yeah?
A lot of people hear roller coaster and they think, oh, it must be fast. Roller coaster actually only refers to the method of propulsion. You can have a very low speed roller coaster, which Gringotts was. I think the fastest it's got up to was 25 miles per hour. Minimal spoilers. Let's just say there's a part where the track is quote unquote destroyed and the vehicle kind of pitches downward at a roughly 45-degree angle.
Yeah, I remember that tilt being promoted as a lot steeper and a lot longer than it actually was. It is fairly short-lived, that part, but I know it was a big selling point for the ride at the time, besides the fact that it was themed Harry Potter. But speaking about theming, can you talk a little on Gringotts itself what it has to do with like the story of the land and the ride?
So Gringotts is the Wizarding Bank. It's located in Diagon Alley.
Darganelli.
Yeah, diagonally. And it's basically where all the wizards keep their money. It's run by the goblins, and it is supposed to be just about the most secure place in the entire Wizarding world outside of like Hogwarts itself when it goes into its lockdown mode. And the ride itself is actually, it's funny because most of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, at least prior to Epic Universe, I can't really speak as to when that's set. But most of it is supposed to be in kind of an amorphous time. It's supposed to be somewhere over the course of all of the books. Gringotts, however, is set during a very specific time. It's set during, I believe, book 7, when Harry, Hermione, and Ron break into Gringotts in order to retrieve one of the Horcruxes. Where we were locked into that very specific amount of time, basically just like that, hour or so period, although we didn't get that specific with it. So like if a guest asked us, like, what do you think of Harry Potter? We were supposed to say, oh, well, the Daily Prophet says that, he's a number one menace, I think is what they say. So I don't think very much of him at all. They had very specific requirements for most of the Wizarding World team members. For one thing, you couldn't speak with an English accent unless you actually were English, unless you were one of the wand trainers, because they actually had vocal coaches who could teach them how to do it convincingly. But for the rest of us, they didn't want us to accidentally offend somebody coming from the UK. I don't know. I think I do a pretty decent British accent, but it's probably for the best. So we kind of existed in this generic sense of, yeah, yes, we're in the wizarding world, but we're just like an average person in the wizarding world. And the average person wouldn't know Harry Potter because Harry Potter, one thing, he goes to Hogwarts. If you're in Gringotts, then like you're not going to Hogwarts a lot. You've already graduated and you're living your life. You would know of him because everybody knows of him, but as one of the populace, your opinion is informed by what the media says, essentially. And since the Daily Prophet has decided that Harry Potter is not a good person, then as a faithful adherent of the narrative, you also don't think that he's a good person. I know that for the team members who worked at Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, which, if for those who aren't aware, that's actually set in Hogwarts itself, they are allowed to have some passing familiarity with Harry, but it's like, oh yeah, I saw him in the halls one time. It's not like, oh, I've ever interacted with him, because a lot of people wouldn't. The idea is you're in the story, but you're not supposed to insert yourself into the plot, if that makes any sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. And when you say that you're a normal person, or your character is supposed to be a normal person, do you mean Muggle as well, or you're a magical being?
No, so everyone at Gringotts is a wizard. However, we were not allowed to tell people what house that we were in when we attended Hogwarts.
Wait, does every magical person have to go to Hogwarts?
They've graduated some sort of wizarding school, or they've at least gone through the process.
I think it's really funny that all these magical beings go to the same school, yet I guess just like real life, everybody can go to the same high school, but then you got some people peddling drinks on the side while others reach big heights like you did as a banker at one of the most secure locations in the wizarding world. So
actually, a bank guard. We were all bank guards.
Oh,
yeah. The bankers themselves were all goblins. So.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Well, and that's a good way to, I guess, hop physically into the ride itself. So when we walk through this amazing facade that has a giant dragon up at the top that breathes fire, how often does it breathe fire?
That's an interesting question. It's actually like probably the number one question that we would get asked when we were at the greeter position is, how often does it breathe fire? And our response was, oh, well, whenever she wants to. The reality is there is no specifically set time, but I believe, if memory serves, it was around every 15 to minutes or so.
Okay.
I do know that it did not have a specifically set time that it did it, because they didn't want it to be something that people were like, oh, we have to be here at this specific time so we could. It was supposed to be more like magical, and if it's something you can set your watch to, then that just kind of seems to remove a magical element from it.
Right. Because remember, if you're magical, you're not punctual or have a routine. You're spontaneous, I guess. But that's good to know.
Facets, which made it interesting working in a bank where, being punctual is actually very important. I mean, if I was ever late, I could just be like, hey, it's the magic.
Magic.
My goblin bosses definitely thought that as a reason. So never got me in trouble.
All right. So we're outside. We see the facade. Now, this is one of those rides where you have to put your bag in a locker, or it's encouraged?
Not just your bag. Basically, everything that couldn't fit securely in a pocket had to go into a locker. That's just kind of a general rule with Universal. It was very strictly enforced on the roller coasters. At Universal, you get to do what's called rescue. So if you come in for your shift and they have enough people to cover all the positions, then they would call out and say, hey, do any other attractions need somebody to work in a non-safety position? Because that's something that you don't need ride-specific training for. And I wound up working at the Hulk coaster one time. And my job was literally to stand there and make sure that the guests put everything in the locker before they came in. and you would always have guests try to like sneak stuff by, but there was a metal detector that they had to go through, so it was a futile. Gringotts did not have a metal detector, as I recall, but at the very least, we made sure that the guests put like any backpacks or purses or anything that could not fit securely in a pocket.
That makes sense. All right, so we walk in, we put our bags away, right? We walk past the locker, we make our way in to the queue, and one of the first major things we see is the big chandelier hall where you see all the trolls. Are they? No, they're not trolls. They're goblins. Yes, all the goblin accountants and tellers around.
They treated us like trolls, but no, they were goblins. Actually, fun fact about those chandeliers: each one of those chandeliers is worth $1 million.
Wait, hold on. Could you imagine trying to pitch that to? To add that to the budget?
Yeah, but Dustin, think about it. It's one of the great highlights of the building. Sorry, I had to.
All right, so now we're moving past the chandelier room, down the stairs. Now, there was an area, I've only ever seen it up and going once, where you could get photos and like there's a green screen and what was that all about?
Yeah, we very rarely use that, but that was I think one of the things that they could do is put them in like their picture in like one of the Daily Prophet news articles. It's not something that we used a lot, so my memory of it is very minor.
Okay, so the people who were working that section with the cameras, that was the photo people. That's not a position you guys had?
No, that wasn't Gringotts. That was Universal's version of PhotoPass, essentially. But that hallway is where it was supposed to be sort of the main office area of Gringotts. So you had like the bank head's office was there, and a bunch of the other side office. And I think there were some joke names that I don't specifically remember that were like nods to different things. There were Daily Prophet news articles on the wall about, like Harry Potter and the fact that he's the number one undesirable, something like that. And that's also where we kind of filtered people into the pre-show area, where we actually start giving them the main plot that they're going to be going through once they actually get on the ride.
Gotcha. So then after that, you then move to one of, I think, the coolest parts of the queue is you're right outside of the elevators that will take you deep underground to the vaults, correct?
Well, first you have to go through the office where you have the little show where you see.
I completely forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, Bill Weasley is talking to, I think it's the head of Gringotts, and the guests are kind of like standing in the back of the room, and they're Bill and the other character, like a holographic projection almost on the other wall, like behind the desk. Fun fact, there's actually a book on that desk. I don't know if they still do it, but I know at the time they did. All of the team members who worked at Gringotts got to sign their name in that book. So my name is actually
that's cool.
That little book that we have there. It's like a log book.
I like that.
After that, you go into that the pre-elevator room, essentially like the waiting room, and then you have a team member there at the podium, which was actually one of my favorite positions because you got to sit down, and all you really had to do is make sure that the guests were like behaving themselves while they were waiting for the elevator. Hit the button when it was time, make sure everybody got on, made sure everybody was standing before you close the doors, give the spiel, and then send them on. And you just got to do that for like, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes. But as far as the elevator, for those who have never been or read about it, it isn't an actual elevator, because the idea is in the story, it takes you 9.5 miles underground. Obviously, Universal was too cheap to dig a hole 9.5 miles. So
yeah, well, maybe if they didn't invest $3 million into chandeliers, they'd be able to dig a hole deep enough. But I digress. But no, that effect is really cool. Universal is kind of the go-to place for fake elevators. So I feel like with Gringotts, I'm not going to say they perfected it, but they definitely brought it up like 20 notches. I mean, like compared to Men in Black. But no, that one's always a fun little illusion. Now, here's a question for you. So you go through this elevator, and then after you go through the elevator, you have to go up some stairs. Don't know why they didn't just have the elevator stop on the right floor, but that's fine. That's beside the point. But here's
Don't
a
question it.
question.
It's magic.
Well, here's a question for you. What if there's somebody with a wheelchair who can transfer into the vehicle? What happens then? Well, I guess they wouldn't even get to that point because they have to go downstairs.
One of the things that we would look out for is guests who would come up in like an ECV or a wheelchair. So we did not allow ECVs into the regular part of the queue at all for safety reasons. It was actually a fire code violation. If you had that kind of situation, we would offer to take you through the exit, and where the guests are coming out, if you go down that hallway, there's actually an elevator that leads up onto the load platform.
And just to be clear, that's a real elevator, correct?
Yes, that is a genuine, real live elevator. Very unthemed. It looks like an elevator in an office building, just without the little lounge music. None of that do 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 do. Unfortunately.
Fair enough. Now, okay, so we're now at the ride. We do the fake elevator. We walk up the stairs, and now we're more or less at the ride.
You missed the goggles.
Oh yes, you need 3D glasses.
You need your miner's goggles because you're going on a fast-paced minecart.
Miner goggles.
It was not really meant for use at all. Like, I don't know how Gringotts hasn't been sued by the Wizarding World for unsafe conditions.
There's no magical OSHA.
Yeah. But anyways, that's also where the single riders line would come through. They had their own little stairs that would take them up. And then the chaos of the grouper would begin, where you would have to try to fit everybody on 2 different sets of ride vehicles and a dispatch goal of 60 vehicles or is it 60 a minute? No, that's not it. No, 60 an hour.
I'm sorry, did you initially say 60 vehicles a minute?
Yeah.
That's pretty quick, Dan.
No.
Each second. Pew, pew, pew,
so
pew.
the goal was 60 dispatches an hour, but that means like from the time that the first vehicle, like say of the hour, pulls in to the time the last vehicle pulls out, you have to get like all of those people loaded on, and you have to make sure that like everybody's securely fastened. And it would be a miracle if you didn't have one person who's just like, oh, I need this loosened, because the restraint devices, they tightened, they did not loosen. So people would pull down on the restraint devices hard, and then they would be like, oh, it's too tight, I need it loosened. So then you'd have to actually pop that row and then let them resecure themselves. And then if you had already checked that row, now you have to go back and check it again for safety reasons.
All right, so right now we're talking about grouper. I know we talked briefly about greeter and some other positions, but if you can remember, what are some of the other positions that you can have while working on this coaster? And I know last interview we talked to somebody who worked on a Disney roller coaster, so I would be interested to see the difference between the 2 companies' approaches to roller coaster positions.
Well, there were a lot of them. The ones that I can think of, and again, I don't remember what the names of all the positions are, but I will describe at least what they do. You would have like greeter 1 through 3. I think we added a lockers position not that long after. You would usually have somebody who hung out in that room with the chandeliers, but I don't remember exactly what they were called. You would have the merge position, somebody who hung out by the double doors because they actually would like open and close them when it was time and make sure that everybody was filing in properly. And that would be the room where you actually do the pre-show. And then you would have the elevator position who would actually like trigger the elevator doors to open and close. Past that, you would have the goggles position. And then when you get to the top, you would have grouper 1 and grouper 2. There were two main consoles, one on each side of the platform, and then two secondary consoles, and then a load front and a load back. Again, this is just going by my memory. The goggles 1 and 2, which would take the goggles from the guests when they were leaving the ride. Child swap, of course. You would have somebody in the other side in the room where the guests get the goggles, and their position would be to take the carts that had all the trays and load the goggle trays into the back slots so that the person on the other side could actually get the goggles and give them to the guests. And they would move back and forth between the room where the goggles would be cleaned. We actually had our own machine to clean the goggles. We had a lot of people who worked at Gringotts, despite it being just one ride.
Now, was there a position like tower where it oversaw the track and everything?
Yes, there was a control room that I had been in a couple times, but I was never actually trained to work there. You had to have special training to
Okay.
do it. And there were cameras throughout the ride and the queue. And they had to always be watching to make sure that everything was running smoothly. And then one thing that I left out, Disney doesn't do this, I don't believe, but Universal had what's called queue patrol. And essentially they would handle all of the breaks. So if you work at an attraction, you can't just say, I need to go to the restroom and then just go use the restroom. So what you would do if you had to use the restroom is you would call it in over the radio, and then they would see if the queue patrol was available. And if they were, they would come and relieve you from your position, which
Okay.
I got to do once. It was a lot of fun. No, actually, I think I got to do it twice before they decided that you had to be controls trained, which makes sense because controls, might have to use the restroom as well. So if you were going to be a queue patrol, you had to be able to do all of the positions.
That makes sense. So, when it comes to your time at Gringotts, what are some fun facts that you haven't already revealed that you know about the ride?
I mean, we would use very themed language, and I like to make up my own language. So like when the ride would go down, the guests would always be like, "Hey, what happened?" And I would tell them, "It's like, oh well, the trolls got on the loose again, and they're wreaking havoc." Or oh, the dragon is just like flipped out and is just like incinerating everybody.
That's what you would tell people that?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And getting to walk the ride track, I think was fun. Gringotts was a very finicky ride. I guess a little fun fact, if you like knowing behind the scenes stuff, the ride actually had to be run more or less 24/7. So we would run it during the day, and then when we left at night, the ride techs would take over and they would run it all night. And then when we came back in the next morning, we would take it over from them and we would run it all day. If we didn't do that, it would break down even more than it already did. That ride would go down all the time. And then we would have to do what's called a halo, which basically you spread out in front of the ride and kind of form like a halo, which is why they called it that. And then as the guests came up and were like, hey, why is the ride down? You would just say, oh, we're just working on some things. And one of the things they would tell you is never say that the ride is broken, because that makes the guests think, oh, it's not safe. And not only is that not the case, but you don't want them thinking of that, right? Because who wants to go on a roller coaster that's broken?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. But when it does come to the ride, what was your favorite part of either working at Gringotts or your favorite part of the ride? Were you a fan of the ride?
Well, I mean, first thing I can say is I had a lot of fun working for Universal. The way that they treat their team members is just so amazing. Like I said, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, so I really liked being able to work in that world and kind of step into that like mindset of, oh, I get to work, get to work here. the guest interactions that I had. I remember one time I was a greeter and a kid walks by with a lightsaber, and I look at him and I'm like, that's a funny looking wand. Where'd you get that? So yeah, no, the little things like that. I think being able to wear the costumes and just kind of immerse myself in that. It was also kind of like getting to play for your job. So I really like that. I did enjoy the ride. It's not my favorite ride at Universal, and the motion sickness did kind of get to me. But my favorite part of the ride is probably where the track is destroyed and you kind of go down a little drop. Like it's a very short drop. It's like over before you know it. I also really like the end where you're kind of trapped in that underground area and then Harry and company show up and save you.
And I'm surprised that a lightsaber made it all the way over to Universal. I guess that kid really likes their lightsaber.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, people go back and forth between the different parks. Like they might start at Universal and then go to Disney, or they might start at Disney and go to Universal. I had interactions with both where somebody would come in and ask me where to find something that was actually not in that company at all.
No, I remember one time working at the Emporium, somebody's like, hey, where's the castle? I remember walking right out to Main Street and pointing at it. There it is. And like, no, the one with the wizards. And I'm like, oh, you're in the wrong park. That's going to be Universal. So that's always fun. That's always a fun conversation to have. But now I'm going to move on to the last question. And this is a favorite here on the podcast, which is, what celebrities have you cited while working your job, and which one was your favorite? Or just name the celebrities. You don't have to pick favorites.
I don't know if I'd say I had a favorite celebrity. Interestingly enough, a number of the celebrities that I saw while working at Gringotts were Harry Potter actors. None of the big ones, but I remember there was one celebration where I was working child swap, and this woman comes in with her group, and she's wearing one of those sweaters where it's like the hood is like a shark's mouth. And after, as she was getting off, somebody had mentioned over the radio, it's like, hey, that's Bonnie Wright. And for those who don't know, Bonnie Wright actually plays Ginny Weasley in the movies. So I guess I met her.
In passing, sure, yeah.
Supposedly, I interacted with Ariana Grande when I was working the goggles position.
Oh, I can tell that left a really deep impression on you.
Yeah. Well, no, so this is actually kind of a funny story. So to paint the picture, when you are working the goggles positions, you have people coming down, like, or either coming down the stairs or coming across from the exit constantly. And it's usually like 24 people down the stairs, 24 people coming from station left. After a while, it just becomes like a sea of like all the different faces, just kind of all blends together, and it's just, your mind kind of shuts off. So after one particular group had come down the stairs, my team captain comes up to me and he's like, hey, do you know who that was? And I'm just like, no. And they're like, that was Ariana Grande. And I was like, okay. And I searched through my memory, and I'm just like, I got nothing. But apparently it was confirmed Ariana Grande was there that day, and she did visit Gringotts. So I guess I took her 3D goggles and thanked her for riding the ride.
Wow.
But yeah, I met Ariana Grande, I guess, in a way. But I have no memory of it.
Okay. So some Harry Potter cast members and then also Ariana Grande. That's pretty cool. Well, thanks, Dan, for spending some time with us and letting us have a little insight on your time working at Universal and specifically at Escape from Gringotts at Universal Studios Orlando.
Well, thank you for having me on and listening to my rambling and forgetfulness. I'm clearly losing what I ever had of my mind in my old age, but it's fine.
It's all right. I feel like anybody who works at a theme park for any amount of time loses some memory and some sanity.
I am waiting for when like another current or former Gringotts person hears this and actually like reaches out to you and I'm like, no, he got this wrong and this wrong and this was completely different. And if you have any complaints at all, please address them to Dustin. It's all his fault.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Parkgoers Go. Catch our new episodes every Wednesday and catch up on our old episodes on Spotify. For any updates and new information about the theme parks or the podcast, follow us on Instagram at ParkgoersGo or visit our website at www.parkgoersgo.com. This episode was produced by Logan, Nathaniel, and Dustin, and edited by me, Dustin. Our theme song was created by John Riedel. You can follow Logan Nathaniel's theme park adventures on Instagram at Parkgoers. You can follow me at Mr. Parkgoer. If you'd like to reach out to us, visit our website and send a comment or a compliment or a critique, but not so much the critique. And until then, see you in the parks.